this, because this is important, and there may be attempts to constrict it. How do I do this? Gosh. Okay. Come on. Come on. Get started shortly. Ooh, I'm nervous. It's a big conversations today. Come on. So slow. It's so slow. Here we go. Alright. Get myself ready. I've already been preparing for this, but I am nervous. Wow. There's a reason for that. Definitely. Okay. Man, this is so slow. It's alright. Okay, here we go. And exit this. Alright. Recording on 2 different avenues today, just in case things happen. I probably will upload this to YouTube just so it's available for everyone. I guess I'd like to start off by saying I'm a little nervous for today's conversations because they are going to be touching on some very sensitive subjects in many different ways. And there's also going to be a lot of that will be things that certain people will not want to be talked about in this world today. So that's why I'm a little nervous, but I've already called in all my spirit guides. I'm safe. Just want to remind everyone, friendly reminder, I'm safe, and everyone else is safe too. I might be doing this a lot because I have 2 different screens going, just FYI. Sorry about that, but I want to be precautious with this as much as possible. But I am protected and safe. I've called in all my spirit guides, and spirits are here to help me. Got my little kitten here who's apparently assisting as well. So that's wonderful. Let's get going, shall we? Okay. I would first like to extend my sympathy and condolences to any family of those who have been tragically killed, and I'm speaking about black and brown people of color who have been tragically murdered and killed. Their lives have been lost and tragically taken. So first and foremost, I want to extend my condolences and compassion towards those families, and also towards all people of color, black, brown people, everywhere, all over the world, because they're all connected in this. So this goes out to all of you, and I'm sorry for what you're going through. Another thing I'd like to say is I believe in what I do. I believe that who I am channeling, let's say, is who I say it is and who it is telling me it is. You don't have to believe that, and that's fine with me. It doesn't matter to me what you believe so much. What matters to me is that I get this person's message across, the way that they want it to be conveyed. That's what matters to me first and foremost. And also, I do care about the audience listening, and my goal is for you all to get as much out of this as you can. So, for whatever that is intended. So, whatever benefits you, whatever you take from it, if it offends you and you can't sit with it, please exit the video, because this is not to make anyone upset. But we will be covering a lot of information and things that can trigger many different types of people on any side of what's going on, and any kind of opinion or belief that you have concerning this. So this can be shocking to many types of people, so please keep that in mind. I ask that no matter what your beliefs are, that you keep an open mind with this, and primarily whether you believe this is real or not doesn't matter to me, but if you keep an open mind with this and entertain the message with an open mind, that's all I ask. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you may feel free to exit at any time. Okay. So, anything else before we get started? I think that's it. So let's get started. You know, I never know how things are gonna go. You can't really plan these things out. I get these impressions sometimes. I've been working on doing these things where I can give a platform to people who have crossed to share whatever perspectives they want to share. And it's so simple too. I really want to explain it in this way. It's so simple. It's as simple as thinking a thought. Excuse you. Thank you. I know, you're trying to help. It's as simple as thinking a thought. So, I just first became aware of this individual recently. My plans were to do a recording with George Floyd. I have a recorded message from him from about a month ago. So I've been planning to do this video with George Floyd, but that's not what today's conversation is going to be with. That's not who we're going to be speaking with today. So like I said, you can't plan these things out, and I was intending to do this a couple days ago. I was planning to get to George Floyd. First of all, I couldn't find the written message anywhere, and even before I couldn't find it, David McAtee started to approach me and become into my awareness. And so we spent some time. Sorry. So I became aware of the presence of David McAtee. And so I thought that perhaps sitting down to do the video with George Floyd, because it was a unique process in and of itself, like that session will be different also. So I thought that he would kind of maybe come in at the end or something, or maybe they would tag team. But as time went on throughout the day, I learned that we need to attribute a video alone for David McAtee, because this is very important. And then I started, as the day got on today, I'm starting to understand what it is we're going to be discussing today. Many different things, topics over police and military and things of that nature. And it's going to be a wide array of things that will be relayed. So it's going to be a little intense. But it's important. So it's important that we understand kind of what's going on. I think we all want to understand what's really going on. So I'll be sharing some things that David McAtee will be bringing forth. I probably will be referring to him as YaYa from this point forward, because as I connected with him more and more today, when I express his energy, it just comes through as YaYa. When I want to speak of him, it just translates itself as YaYa. There's a lot of energy there, so that's kind of what I connect more with. So I'll be using that. Um, let's just talk about how things are consciousness and what happens upon a transition of death. All things are consciousness, whether you are living or in the non physical realm, it doesn't matter. You are consciousness, and you have consciousness, which is to say, awareness or focus. When one passes away, the general trajectory is of expansion. Of course, we also know of things such as stuck spirits, but that is kind of its own little thing that we're not really going to be talking about today. By and large, most spirits, well, we might talk about it a little bit later in the video, but we'll get to that. Most spirits cross over pretty much immediately, okay? It's a very natural process. It's an expansive process. One becomes aware of a fuller version of themselves. So the awareness expands. So YaYa is not stuck anywhere. YaYa is not suffering. He is at peace. In fact, I often see him, he's like smiling and laughing or smiling. He has a, let me just start to describe like how I get imprints of him, the impressions of him that I get. Because I don't know much about him other than what's in the news, what was in the news. I don't know if he wore, I think I'm going to take these off. I don't know if he wore glasses, but I kind of see him with glasses sometimes, like a clear frame or like a small, thin frame glass. Eyeglasses. I also see like long hair or like dreadlocks, sort of. There's a sense of, there's also, let me just describe how I see him for the most part. This is how I typically see him. He comes to me in like there's like a red t-shirt and it has like all this, it's a busy design. So there's like markings and stuff. I can't really make it out. I don't know what it is. It looks like graffiti or something. And there's also different materials. So there's like things in the shirt, and then there's also like a shiny glossy material and like stripe and things. It's a very like, I want to say busy shirt. It's a designed shirt. It has elements to it. It's not a plain boring shirt. So I feel like, I don't know if this is something he wore often or what, but it kind of feels to me like he has a warm personality, very friendly. He's been very friendly with me also. I also see him, and he wears, in this outfit, I see him with like black basketball type shorts. So the general feel I get with him is a very relaxed person, someone, and he's kind of relayed this to me in the past couple of days, that is something that is important to him, is to relax and enjoy life, and to let the small things go as much as you can. So I just want to double check something real quick. Oh well, I think it's working. Anyway, that's one outfit I see him in, that casual outfit. And he's usually, even now, he like gives me this image of like laughter. Very jovial, friendly guy. Caring, very caring, compassionate. And before we get into, like, I'll let him start speaking soon. And there's another way I see him too, which is primarily I started to see him a couple days ago when he started, because I was aware of his spirit a few months ago too, but we haven't connected until just a couple days ago in terms of like actually exchanging energy and meeting one another per se. So, but I've been aware of his presence, and I can't always distinguish all of the souls, but I've been aware of the collective of souls that like this tragedy happens to. So there have been several that come and go within my awareness, and I think we'll be discussing a couple of them later also. But that'll be at the end of the video. Uh, but I've just gotten to know him recently, and he's come to me more recently, and we've gotten to know one another. So another way that I interpreted YaYa right away was the first outfit I described: red T-shirt with design and black shorts, relaxed. He also wears like black tennis shoes or something. Socks, I see like white socks. But the whole vibe I get is like lounging, comfort. He's all about comfort and enjoying life. Almost like food is a comfort, you know. Is But he's kind of telling me that it's more than just the food. For him, it was all about comfort. Uh, Another way I see him immediately is like, and it's like what I see immediately is just tongs. So I'm sure he'll get into that maybe a little bit and share like that night. Obviously, there's controversy about the video footage, but the way I see him, another way I see him is tongs, barbecue tongs. And when I first saw this, all I could see were the tongs, like in his hand, but it was just like tongs. So this is another way I see him, and then I can kind of see him more fully now, like holding the tongs, and he wears this like apron, and it's like one of those older. It's a simple apron. It's like those striped apron with like a dark gray color with like a thread, lines of thread, like white lines, and it's like, and it looks like kind of dirty. I don't know if he wore the same one over and over, or if the gist I get is that he's constantly working. Right, this is something he loved to do, which we all pretty much know that already. I think that's it for me. So let's see. I'll let him kind of describe and start speaking. See how this goes. He's going to start off by saying he wants to say that it can be easy for anyone to observe the situation of what happened to me and understanding, and it's easy for anyone who saw what happened to me to be able and to know who I am even and what happened to me in my passing. It's very easy for so many people to understand and ascertain what I was about in my life, which primarily was one of service to other. And I would like to get into that more, because it is well known that I served the community. This is YaYa speaking. It's just going to be easier for me to just kind of let it through. He wants to talk about how he served the community, and of course he doesn't want to underline the importance of how he served the community in terms of civilians, but he also wants to mainly address today, and in the beginning of this discussion, he wants to talk about how he served the police community. This was, he says to me, to me at my core was what I was all about: service, no matter who it was. I didn't see disparity, is what he's telling me. I didn't see differences in people in terms of significance. The differences in people did not signify anything different to me. I simply observed different types of people, and I loved that about life. I really always tried to love life. He does want to acknowledge his upbringing. There is a warmth around his family as a whole, and he does want to acknowledge his immediate family and larger family also. But there is a particular addressing of his mother, and I got this also with George Floyd. I think it's really interesting. But he wants to bring up his mother and his upbringing, and he's making me feel like, because of how he viewed his mother and what his mother like was to him, and the role model kind of thing, compassion, like a showing of compassion, like a teaching of compassion throughout his life, was what enabled him to at some point get out of. I kind of sense that maybe he was in some kind of trouble, or things that weren't something he wanted to be involved with, or were not really his thing, you know, but just things that he might have got. We don't even need to get to that. This was like more in his youth, I feel like, but because he's wanting me to talk about his mother and the way that his mother was an idol for him, like an icon, and he's okay. He wants me to say that, like, in the way that he's an icon, the way I've called him an icon in the description of this video to the community, he wants to relay that his mother was an icon to him in the way that he was an icon to the community. And he makes me feel like his mother is what led him and helped shape him to find this essence of who became YaYa in the serving nature. He's saying my mother taught me how to allow myself to be the person who I was meant to become. That's how he puts it. So that was a little side note. So we were talking about service. He's wanting to bring up service. He's all about serving and serving others. He wants me to say how he believes that service is only beneficial whenever it is unconditional. And he said that not at first, but eventually in my life, I came to a point where I began to feel drawn to serve. I had always felt drawn to serve, he says, but there was a point in my life where everything shifted for me and I was able to serve. And I pretty much never saw differences between anyone, but there was this definite shift at a later point in his life, maybe 30-ish, where he changed and started to believe in himself more, that kind of thing, and all of these natural characteristics that he had, which he already had the non-judgmental view of everyone already, but because of things in his own personal experience, I feel like there were a lot of blockages and things that he was going through. So up until that point, he was only able to do so much, and he actually had like a lot of hardships, I feel like, up until this point. But at some point there was like this breakthrough, and he was able to start serving in the way that he had always wanted to. And he wants to talk about service and this openness and this unconditional way, because it's very important, because he's leading into the conversation topic of why and how he feels about serving the police community as in the way that he did. And he says he really wants me to iterate this, that he is just as adamant about that today, if more so than when he was alive. He wants me to convey that he cares deeply for all members of the community, including officers. This was true of him when he was living. He saw the large disparity and gap between, primarily, this is also like racial, but like he's talking about like police and the black community. He saw this big gap from a long time and understood it from an early age, of course, but this is something that he started to grow an understanding of, I feel like, in his adulthood, of how to maybe, no, he's telling me like what he started to understand was this non-judgment, this openness, this unconditional attitude. He started to realize that we are all the same, which is what he knew all along, and this kind of, he started to see that there was this huge gap, and that the problem, how do you say this? He started to, let's say it this way, this is really more accurately what it was like. He started to see that there was a possibility to bridge that gap, and that became very interesting to him, and because of the tangibility that he felt with that, he did believe that, and that's what he was also looking to do with his service in all areas of the community, not just in police communities. But he felt that all of us are the same, and he still feels this way, and he felt that the way to fix these issues was to bridge that gap. And the best way he knew, he said, from his mother teaching him that the best way to connect with one another on a human level was through the comfort of food. And so that's what he sought out to do. He also tells me that people who are full are less likely to be angry or upset or sad. So this was another way in which he saw himself helping people. You have a full stomach, you're more likely to have more peace of heart and mind, because you have your basic needs met, right? For him, food was spiritual and it was comfort. And he was all about comfort and living a good life for everybody. He wanted everybody to live a good life. Where do we want to go next? He wants me to say that there's a lot that we don't understand about what occurs in the police. I think he wants me to draw it out in some kind of way. Okay, I'm starting to understand. Okay, I'm starting to understand this. All right. He's saying that there's so much that we don't understand about this whole problem with what we've called police brutality, this whole big issue. And he's also differentiating that between also the system of the police department, generally speaking, as a whole, because this kind of applies generally in a similar way throughout most, if not many, definitely departments throughout the country and world also. He's just saying that there's just a lot. It's like this. There's so much that we don't know yet, and we don't really need to know yet. And we there's also like I'll be sharing some things, and then through this video, but also there's some things I won't be sharing details, and I'll leave that up to him and my guides to kind of tell me what should be shared and what shouldn't be shared, because things have to kind of progress as they need to naturally. But also there is a desire for understanding of what's going on and what's at the underlying cause of all these issues. He wants to start addressing the issue of police department because he's talking about it as like a complex, or like yeah, complex is a good word. It's its own organization, and it's built on this kind of model that he's drawn for me. I don't know if this is going to be able to be seen, but essentially there he had me draw dots on the bottom, and then these kind of 3 circles or platforms, and then a larger bubble platform. So this is like the top of the platform. This is like the unknown. We don't know any of the people involved here or who gives orders here. This is way above what we know. This is like really at the top of the complexity. So we won't really be discussing that so much yet. But the dots represent like the individual members of the police department. And that is also stratified, so there are various levels of individual police officer. But this is what is known to public. So this is in public awareness. This is what we know is really just the ground floor. The officers themselves. He's telling me also what we see. Okay, this is important. He's telling me what we see on TV, and like he's including the police chief and any, especially okay. He's telling me especially anyone who we see on television who's representing the police, no matter what city it is. He's telling me is in this bottom tier. Because in these 3 tiers above, so in the individualized tier, this is only what is known to the public. And he's saying that we might see this as stratified, as having a chief and all these layers and like administrative. We might consider this to be administrative, but he says we have no idea what the administration really looks like deeper. He's also saying that the individuals in the police department, in the general police, are also primarily unaware of all of the stuff on top. So even they, in this public arena, the police officers themselves, see it how we see it. We think that this is all there is. It's the police, and then there's the one on top, and then like the board and whatever, and they make all the decisions, and they're directed by the governor or what else, and whatever you want to believe, because it's kind of messy. But he's saying that all of that is just the individual level, and that there is much more than we know. He drew 3 platforms on top of those dots, like above them, and they expand so they get bigger. And he's calling these 3 platforms the administration. He's saying that this is not the administration that we have awareness of. This is the administration that controls the decisions of the police. He's saying that many of the individuals in the police have no idea what these administrations are or look like. He's saying it's kind of like controlling a puppet, or like, and I don't want to be demeaning in any way. It's not demeaning, but it's understood like how you can move a puppet. You don't see the hands, but you see the puppet move. All we see are the police officers, and even within their own group, all they see is puppets, and they don't have any idea that these are puppets. Most of them. There are those that are catch on, but they don't question it because these things are built on power. So these administrations that we don't have any idea of, they're very much, and have been for a long time, in control. And then there's the large unknown bubble on top of all of this that controls them. That would be what we would consider like the 1% wealthy elite of the globe kind of thing. But there are more in that group. We don't know. We don't really have names for those people. Like, they're not in public awareness at all. Like, they are completely behind the scenes. There is so much going on here. Anyway, I'll let him get into that. So you have like these 3 tiers basically, and it's not so cut and dry as this, but in this middle administration that we are also completely unaware of, there are stratuses, levels. So some people, he's saying, in the police force as individuals might be aware of this first level, and there's often, he's telling dealings like money exchange, because there's a lot of corruption in police. He wants to clarify that this is something that is like a puppet, is embedded, like a sickness before it shows symptoms is embedded. And lately, it's been coming to the surface, right? Like the symptoms are starting to expose themselves to us, the public. It's just gotten to where like your bone is broken and the bone is exposed. Like, to me, that's kind of what happened with Breonna Taylor and with David McAtee. Like, that kind of is like, we're at that point where it's very critical, right? And we are all of our attention is on it because you can't really escape that broken bone. And even those people that are looking at the broken bone and exposed bone being like, well, it's not a problem, it's not there. It's still growing an infection, so, and it's still there whether you believe it's there or not. But the point is, we're at the breaking point, essentially, and although this will probably take, quite a bit of time to unravel all the fullness of what's going on above, because there's so much going on that influences these individuals. It's very complicated and complex. And he's saying the more that we can have compassion towards the system and towards the officers themselves, the better for us, because there's so much that we don't understand, and if we did understand the bigger picture, we might understand why these things might happen as often as they do, because of the kind of influence that these people live under is very heavy. Very heavy. We're talking about the kind of energy behind, like, is his name Jeffrey Epstein, that guy? Jeffrey Epstein? Something Jeremy, I don't know. Epstein. That kind of energy that, like, killed him. Like, that kind, we're dealing with that kind of thing. Like, it's very powerful. So these things have a lot of heavy influence, and if you're trapped into these kind of systems, this influence has such dominion over you. So he's asking that we have compassion and just wanting us to know that there's more going on than meets the naked eye. There's so much more. Okay, so where are we going to go? I feel like we're going to move on to something. Okay. He's going to talk about the night that he was killed. Excuse me. So I was getting this impression earlier. So like, I feel like I'm inside the barbecue joint. I've seen the video. It's been a while. and I don't know if I saw the new footage actually, but I haven't really studied it, but I did watch it a month or two ago. But that's a different memory. He's what I'm seeing, like, I might be his perspective. I don't know, but the impressions I'm getting are I'm inside the building, and there are definitely shots being fired at into the building first. Whether they're pepper bullets or real bullets, I don't know. All I hear is like sound like into something. And so there is an immediate sense, a shift of alert. Like I think everyone in the building, but YaYa became immediately alert. He knew what was going on, and he was not going to let anything happen. So I feel like he immediately went out. It seems to me to be very quick, like pretty casual, like monitoring what's going outside off and on throughout the hour or whatever, coming in and out, like hanging with people, cooking, and then it just kind of changes all of a sudden. Like it's very quick. Like I hear the, and then it's like, oh, kind of like, oh hell no, what the heck, like what the hell, like I'm not gonna let this happen. Is the feeling I get. So like there's this like when they have those stories of when someone is strong enough to lift a car over their child or something that's trapped. It's this kind of feeling that I get. Like he's like no. It's like almost like I get this sense of armor. Like something overcame him. He's telling me that this is going to be difficult to hear. He's telling me this is what was meant to be. He's telling me that this was the role that he was meant to take in this moment. That this served a higher purpose for him and for the people involved. He's giving me the feeling like I'm getting the feeling that if he didn't step out and try to intervene, that maybe more people's lives would have been lost that night. Like, not many, but two or three. I'm getting the feeling like it was a dangerous situation. He's okay. And there's other information too about that will come out in time, but I won't reveal it now. It's not meant to be revealed now because things have to unfold, and if specific information gets out, it could become distorted easily, and people would get carried away with that. But he stepped outside and he was pretty much immediately shot and killed. I think that was the impression I got from me. Or let me just see what he wants to say. He's making me feel like a soldier. He's saying it like I died defending my home, my people. So for him, it's very honoring. Um, it's like he has no regrets. He would do it again. He was not going to let anything happen, and he calls it his family. I feel like this is like more than just real blood. Like he's very close to many people, and he takes this relationship of community very seriously. And it's almost like he became this other person whenever, as soon as they heard the shots, and they were definitely fired at first. And he was confirming for me earlier, and this is gonna get a little tricky. Let's just take a little moment to breathe, okay? Because this is also, we're getting into some heavier stuff that kind of relates to police. Excuse me. He's confirming for me that we're getting into some big stuff, okay? He's confirming for me that this was what we have called National Guard. He's saying that this was not police involvement. However, that is not to say that there are not heavy ties between this group that we call the National Guard in this situation. There are ties between that group and the police, not just here but everywhere. He's saying that just like the police department and realm is something that we don't fully understand at all, so is the thing that we want to call National Guard. He's also saying that there are a little bit of a difference between National Guard and what we have determined and called the National Guard in these situations in particular. There is a National Guard that exists. He's saying that there is an overlap. He's saying that there were National Guard present in Louisville and also that night and maybe even nearby. But he, there are like more than one group involved, and they are all government groups, from a lack of a better definition. They are agency groups. They are connected to who runs the puppets, and they recruit people. He was talking to me about the recruiting a little bit earlier. Yeah, it's pretty messed up. But uh, and then just now he was telling me that just now he was telling me it's it can be understood by us like how we look at the KKK and the white supremacist groups. It is very similar to that. He's saying the way in which they organize these groups, both internally, but mostly he's telling me that these groups are organized externally by larger forces, influenced, let's say. He's saying it's like he said it's so easy. He's relating me to like how easy it can be to kidnap a child, like in a large city. People that do those kinds of things, it can be very simple. If you know how to, it's just like that. If you know what you're doing, if you're paying attention, it can be very easy. He's saying it's the very same thing with the recruitment process. He's saying the National Guard is not what we think it is, especially in, he's talking about this year, 2020. He's saying there's more involved in it. He's saying that there are recruitments and they go under the guise of government. So they might even think they're joining the National Guard. But he's saying it's much bigger than that. And it's almost like lower than the National Guard. It's like a supremacist group kind of mindset and energy. Like you get poor, mentally unstable, traumatized, typically young men, to they're very influenced. You can easily influence them, especially when they're really down. And there's so many people that go through, and he's saying like it doesn't even have to be trauma. He's saying like someone can just have a lot of anger with him. Let's say they lost a relative, or someone betrayed them, divorce, custody battle, ex cheating on them. Like they can go from this simple thing to like having a breeding of anger and get lost in that way. He said these kinds of people are so easy to lure in, and you can promise them things like candy to a child, like in very simple ways like weapons, but you get them like involved with feeling like they're special and they have power, especially if you lie to them and tell them like they're serving their country. This is the kind of thing that these groups do, and I want to make it clear that the energy that I'm getting off of this is that this is tied into what we think of as our government. So this is not separate. They mesh. They definitely mesh. There is intent going on, and this is above kind of like what we understand as the government, like administration, like presidential administration. This goes above that. There are people above that. So, and they are organized. He's saying like it's the same thing with not all but certain mass shootings and also like terrorist groups, both in the Middle East and that have come domestic terrorism from the United States, but also terrorists that have come into American land, soil, all of that. He's saying like those kinds of groups and things. Those are organized, and some of the mass shootings are organized. It's to cause chaos and disruption. Okay, I'll just say what I'm feeling. He's saying that the purpose behind this whole setup from the get-go, and he's saying like thousands of years at least, is like to be able to control people. And the reason for that is if people were to become, okay, let's put it this way. Those people on top feed off of the energy, let's say, of all of us on the bottom. And they need that to survive. You know, they've been caught up in the system so long, like that's what they want, and they're like caught up in this greed, struggle, or whatever it is. It's pretty gross. But they need it to survive like a parasite, so they have to live off of it. And so, what would happen if, what were to happen, what would be to happen if people on a much larger scale, like 60%, started to become more independent and less reliant on the government and making their own money and making their own decisions. Uh, when you have more freedom, you are you can't really be fed off of, so they would like lose their food source basically, quite energetically, metaphorically, and literally. Like all of their assets, let's say, and wealth, and I'm talking like things we can't even understand, like people we do not know. All of this goes up to the top, right? So they don't want people to become free because then they don't have their luxury, basically. So, and there's a lot of fear, I feel like, with them on top. Like there's a fear of like they need this. They feel like they need this to survive. And they're I also feel like these people on top, like their views are very distorted, obviously, but like they do view us here, they view themselves differently. It's almost like they view themselves as a different species. Like that's how they view themselves. They think they really do think they are better. And but this is causing them a lot of trouble, and so they're kind of like lashing out with trying to exercise more control. And so, okay, so he's saying like that's kind of what the premise and purpose is behind organizing certain things like the mass shootings and things that cause hysteria. But in particular, he's talking about this year in organizing these groups that we have called the National Guard. He's saying it is this National Guard, not the official National Guard that was outside his building that night and who shot him. So these people he's saying are just like, he's saying like just like me and you watching this. He's saying these are everyday people. They get recruited into these groups. He's saying it's so easy. And they just simply do what they're told. And that's what happened. He's making me feel like those were real bullets, not pepper bullets. So that's just what I pick up on. That makes sense. Yeah, okay. So, now what? He's telling me that it's so complex, and that is part of the reason why some of this stuff is taking so long to come out. Because it's embedded with so many things. There has been a big event with Breonna Taylor and with David McAtee in particular in the city of Louisville that has bust open a huge, huge, disgusting wound that is in this city. And it is just the surface of the wound, and yet what has been exposed is we can see from just looking at the opening of the wound that it is very large. And it's like having a wound, but it's not just a surface level wound. It's not even just under the flesh. It, like, let's say connects to like a bone issue too, or a muscular issue. There are so many things in a nerve issue. Like there are so many things that are tangled together, he's saying. So like if you were to try to, let's say, go in and fix one thing and pull it out, you might mesh with all the other things and move those. And it's like he's describing it in this way. It's like, let's say I were to fall on a broken glass bottle shard or something, but it's like all these pieces are like a big, let's say a big bottle that's been broken in half, and it's got all these different shards like a mountaintop, and it gets stuck in like my leg or arm or something. He's saying, as we can understand today, if we were to just yank that and pull it, it would cause a lot of damage. And it's best to leave something like that. Or if you were impaled with something, you don't just pull it out. You know, that can be very, you could lose your life. So he's saying it's this kind of thing. It's a very tricky situation. You have to go about it very difficult, or especially. He's saying, though, not to be concerned, don't be afraid, because this is happening. He's saying that it is being addressed. So, and that is also part of the reason why things can be taking so long. There's also other factors at play. We won't get into that yet. He wants me to talk about empathy now. He's bringing up like this group I talked about, like that we call the National Guard. Like there's these other outside groups, and there's more than one, but they fall under the general military umbrella, especially this year. So just because you see someone in uniform doesn't mean that they're official. They might say they're official. They might even have an official ID. This is how serious this gets because, like I said, like he was saying, they tie in with the government. So this is very much interwoven so that you can't trace it back to the top, right? But he said it's too late for that. It's too much has been exposed that it is inevitable that he's telling me he wants everyone to know it's inevitable for that the top will collapse because it cannot sustain itself. It is like a parasite, and eventually it will wither. Because he's telling me that people are cutting the cord. He's telling me that many people are cutting the cord to that energy and becoming aware of it and not agreeing with it and moving their energy elsewhere to community and peace and compassion and serving others. And he's saying that this is very powerful and that the more people turn away from this energy, that it shrivels. It doesn't have nutrients to feed off of anymore, and it begins to wither and fall away eventually. So we can't really see the effects of that yet because the roots are still kind of being cut. So it will take a few days. It'll take some time. You know, like recently I cut some weeds in my yard, and it was eventually like because they had grown into vines, which is gross. But like it took a few days, but eventually like all these other things died, and I was able to easily clean them up. And it was kind of because I had just taken a weed eater and cut the root. So this is like something he's bringing to my attention. Like we are cutting the root now, and a lot of roots have already been cut. So it's only a matter of time before the evidence of the weed being cut will show itself. It will start to turn brown. It will start to wither eventually. So he's saying there is hope in all of this, and there is a good outcome in all of this. And he was wanting that he's still talking about empathy. He is saying that a lot of these people in these groups, like the what we understand and call the National Guard, that may not actually be National Guard. He's saying they're just like you and me, and a lot of times a lot worse. Like they're very troubled people, they're very hurt people, and so they're given promises, and then all of a sudden their trauma starts to go away because they're believing in something and they're given hope, right? And so he's saying he wants us to have empathy for these people because they're no different than you and I, and they've been through a lot of tragedy themselves, and they are simply very, very like sick, like misguided, and um, under control of other people. And so like the people we see are basically just pawns, and they might not even be wanting to do the things they're doing, but they're just like they're very much like very controlled, like very brainwashed. Some of them he's telling me are brainwashed. Like they do like wow, that's really messed up. Like like psychological, and also like he's talking to me like things that I'm doing and that other people do around the world already. He's starting like psychic. He's starting like psychic stuff. He's saying not in all cases because he's saying it's very easy to actually uh, recruit people. He's saying it's very easy, but in a lot of cases too, he's saying they also will like brainwash people with like technology and like images and stuff and sounds. And he's also talking to me about psychic warfare and how he's saying that it's almost like overtaking like zombies. You know like how in sci-fi movies and shows, like a necromancer or whatever can like raise the dead and control them. It's like that, and he's saying that that does happen also. So he's saying that we can never know, he says, what someone has gone through. And he's saying what he wants to say is, he says this is really important to him, and it's really big information too, I feel. But it's like he's saying the only thing that can bridge that gap between, no matter what it is, the only thing that can bridge the gap from violence to peace, what was it, is empathy and compassion. There's no other way. So you don't have to accept like a criminal or someone who you oppose. You don't have to accept them into your experience, but just start to think about like, what kind of situation are we dealing with really here? I mean, this is a big situation, and what kind of shadow work is at play, like shadow government, and like what is going on? And let's put ourselves in a shoe like that, like especially if you look at the Middle East, like it's so easy over there because the conditions there, it's much different than America, right? There's a little much less freedom. So like there are so many more people there who are in this traumatized, tragic category, and that's how they form these groups like ISIS and things. Like it's so easy to take a troubled person and get them to do whatever it is you want. He's saying it's so easy. You just give them a slimmer of hope, and they'll do whatever you want because it's all they know. It's all they know is pain, right, and suffering. So you give them a sliver of paradise, and they're yours because it's like an addiction. So he's saying we should have empathy for all people, just like someone with a disease or with an addiction. It's not always what it appears on the surface level. He wants us to really remember that, especially when it comes to like the police and these entity organizations like FBI and the government itself, and the agencies, and what was I just saying? The National Guard, military. There's something about the National Guard. I don't know, because I feel like that is like kind of different than. I feel like this is less. This occurs less in other branches of military than it does. It's almost like I'm getting the feeling like the National Guard exists, but it's like a cover up for this whole program scheme of ulterior motive organizations, right? Because it's like it seems like it's this almost mysterious group. I don't really know much about the National Guard. This is just like the energy I'm getting behind, because I don't feel like this is extends as much. I mean, it does happen in like the army and things, but it's like much less. Like almost like you send a spy in. I don't know. It's very peculiar to me. So what does all this mean? And where can we go from this? YaYa? What can we do? What can we do? Well, he brings me right back to empathy right away. Empathy and understanding. And he's saying like it doesn't do any good to like dwell on that which scares us. Like the more we can just concern ourselves with our immediate home and family, and like show love with those in our immediate experience, he's saying like that kind of feeling will teach us what it is to have compassion. So he's saying it's not going to be easy for us to have compassion towards people like this or like predators. You know what I mean? Like it's not easy to have compassion for those types of people at all because it's so severe. So he's saying take it easy, start easy. Start with what you know, your family, who you live with, your friends, your immediate environment, the ones at work who you really like light up your day. And so like look for things like that and extend your love in the relationships that you already have, and notice what that feels like. And then he says extend that outward and know that we are all family. And he wants to end on like the fact that he viewed himself as one with all of the earth and all the people of the earth. He saw us all as one big family, and he still does. And he says that until we see each other as family, no matter who we are or what organization we belong in, the gap will still exist. But he's saying, he wants to end on this note. He's telling me If you look at how easy it can be to recruit someone, as he was describing, to recruit in like a organization or ring kind of thing, he said as easy as it is to lure someone into there, he said it's a million times easier to build this bridge from in this gap and reduce this gap. He said it's a million times easier. We just haven't discovered yet how, with what tools we can do that. But we are, he says, and empathy is that tool. But he's trying to get me to point out that we've already used this tool. He's talking about like murals, this kind of energy, the vigils, candlelight, but also like hanging banners. He's showing me banners honoring the image and beauty. He's talking about especially like artistic portrayals and drawings and paintings. He said that is a sign of empathy. He also wants me to reiterate and be very clear that just because someone is in a uniform, no matter if it's National Guard or police, that does not mean that they are on an opposing side. We don't know what they feel and we don't know what they think, despite what they might be acting or saying or doing. He wants us to remember that we're all the same, we all came from the same, and it will all go back to the same. I do get the feeling that he was religious, because I got the feeling earlier that when he passed away, that he was met by Jesus. And I don't know if that's significant for him or what, or if he even had a relationship with Jesus when he was alive. I don't know. But there's something there now about them. And I do get the feeling that he was met by Jesus when he passed away, among other people that he knew. But there's some kind of relevance there. So I don't know what that relevance is, but I thought I'd bring it up. And then, will we go into this now? I don't know how long this has been on. About an hour. Okay. Yeah, I mean, because I don't really understand. We'll just go into this because I don't really understand what this is. But, so I guess we'll figure it out as we go. But, I was feeling drawn to a couple of souls also. I believe it's Tamir Rice. And I don't know her name, I'm sorry, but there was the teenage woman, young woman, who was shot in the back of the car, the police car, in the back, I think, her neck or back, head. I have been aware of these souls in the past couple of months, but for some reason, I think YaYa wants to address them today. And but why? Well, he's bringing me back to how I was talking about how certain souls, in the beginning of this video, I was talking about how primarily souls transition practically immediately into the other side, but of course not always. And there is this notion of a potential to be stuck, especially in terms of like traumatic and tragic death, where the consciousness is focused on something specifically and has a hard time wrapping its mind around what happened and gets stuck in the area and etc. He's saying, he was bringing me back to that. He's saying that this can happen. He wants to preface all this by saying this is not a heaviness and there's nothing to be afraid, and he wants to show kind of, okay, I get it. I don't know much about Tamir Rice. I think that's who this is. I think I remember that name correctly, and that's kind of what I'm picking up now. Was he a young boy? I think he was a young boy. And I'm not familiar with the circumstances, but I feel like, okay, so let me just talk about what I feel. That's what YaYa is telling me to do. Around each of the souls, and then we'll let YaYa talk about what's going on. Okay, so the energy I get around Tamir Rice is very young and very scared still. The spirit is scared. Innocence, confusion, but fear, like an unworthiness, and what did I do wrong? The energy I get around this young female woman, I'm sorry, I don't know the name, I can't pick up on it, but it's like, I know who it is. It's the one that was shot in the car, the police car. She has a lot of anger. A lot of anger. I was picking up on this earlier. She is very angry, and as I tune into her, It's like she goes a mile a minute, and I can't even understand everything she says. She's so angry, and this is kind of like how I can describe it. So I don't know the circumstances around why she was trying to be detained by the officers. I don't know any of that. But this is the feeling that I get, and this is like kind of like she says like, yeah, I'm pissed off. Okay, she said that she was just trying to enjoy her life. It's kind of similar to YaYa. She was just trying to enjoy her life. The feeling I get is like trying to go to the mall with friends. Like you're just like shopping. Like this is just an excursion. This is just for fun. Like I'm just trying to do something simple and fun, and I can't even do that. Like, and it's like something was like being like my freedoms were taken from me feeling, and there's just all this anger about like there's a lot of anger. Like, why can't I just have fun? Like, why can't? What's so wrong with being with my friends and with going to the mall? Kind of, I don't know. That's just the energy that I get. Like, all I wanted was to live my life. Why couldn't I do that? And there's a lot of anger too with how she was killed, not just why or like the circumstance itself, but she's very upset with being shot in the back. She looks at it as like we do, like cowardice, but it's just like makes her very angry. Like, you can't even face me to kill me. What are you afraid? Like, she's very angry. Okay, so what does all this have to do with YaYa? Can you help me? He said no. It's not up to me, it's up to you. You're gonna tell them. Okay, so let's start with Tamir. I'm gonna invite Tamir closer to my an hour presence. I'm gonna tell him. I'm just gonna let you know what I'm doing with him. I'm gonna speak to Tamir now. Tamir, it's okay, and I understand that you're afraid. And what happened to you was not because it was nothing that you deserved. You didn't do anything wrong. All of us are here for you. All of us care about you. And there are those around you to help you. I want you to know, Tamir, that you don't have to be afraid and that you can move on. And when I do these things, and you can do these things too, imagine white light around them and wishing them peace. Already I can feel like he's at more peace. Just letting them know that peace is an option is very helpful. And again, not all souls go through this, but these two came up to me today because I feel like they have unresolved things still. And YaYa wants me to do this in front of you. So, Tamir, your family loves you and is there for you. It's okay if they can't hear you. I feel like you're upset because they can't hear you in the way that you interpret. But I'm going to tell you, some of them can, okay? Especially when they're sleeping. So don't think that what you're doing isn't getting to them and that they don't care because they're not responding back to you. In a similar way, you can't hear them either because of where your mind is at, all right? So trust me, your family loves you and they love you very much and they're here for you. And just because when you go into the white light, my friend, you don't leave behind your family. You will become even closer to them. There's always warmth, okay? So don't be afraid to be you, and don't be afraid to feel loved and love your family. Just because you were taken from your body doesn't mean you were taken from your family, all right? I want you to know that. You can never be taken from your family, ever. You are still connected with your family. that make sense? Okay. I'm going to move on to this young woman. I'm so sorry, I don't know your name. Wow, she's got all kinds of emotions. She's saying, first of all, it's okay, it doesn't matter. And she was kind of angry, and she's like, at least you're. She's kind of giving me the feeling, at least you care more than like these people who killed me care. Like she gets this feeling like all these people don't even care to get to know her as a person. Or like it goes deeper than that though. It's like kill me on sight for what? She's like all I want is to be acknowledged and validated. Well, I validate you. For simplification, she just wants peace. Well, peace is yours to have. You are allowed to be at peace. Don't let yourself think that you can't be at peace. And I know it's easy to hang on to these anger feelings. I want you to know that I think it's important how that anger that you have is important in my view, because it means to me that you care about yourself enough and your own self-worth. Because if you didn't, you would be in a lower place. But your anger is along the lines of passion, and it means that you care. And primarily, you care about yourself. You also care about what's right, and you care about the well being for everybody. And I want to point you to this direction because there's a reason for that. There is absolute truth in that, and there's also like that's 100% valid, and you are allowed to feel that way. And that really is the reason for your anger, because what you were looking at and looking at was something that was sort of removed from that energy. Does that make sense? So like your focus was on away from what was really there, but this has been there the whole time. You care. I'm just going to tell you, you care. And I feel like you have a hard time hearing this. You don't want to feel like you care. I feel like this young lady has a very tough exterior. Like, I take care of myself. But you care. You care about other people, and don't lie. You have a soft side to you, too, that you don't like to show to other people. And this care for other people and yourself and for your own life, you cared so much about, like, you as a person in your life and the meaningfulness of you as an existence that you felt upon your passing was demeaned and taken away. And so you kind of stayed there, if that makes sense, with your concentration. But the whole reason that you felt that anger was because you have the love within you. Does that make sense? So because you care so much, you have passion. What happened to you was a huge catalyst, like a big explosion, like turning point, and it was eruptive. It was an eruption for you, and you became angry. Why? Because you have passion. Let me tell you, I feel like she's mostly crossed on anyway, but there's like she had these anger issues still that we're working through. So like, let me just tell you, like, you can do so much. And I feel like she feels like there was a lot taken away from her, like this power. But you know this. I know you know this. No one can take your power away. So just remember that. And let me tell you, like, once you start to move from anger back to that passion fully, you will see, like, how strong you are and what it is you can do for those spirits around you and for those of us still here. Okay? So you are still important. I want you to know that. You are important where you are. You know? I know you felt like something was taken. I know you're angry about that. That anger to me tells me that you know that they can't ever take your energy away from you. Okay, so we're getting somewhere deeper here. The issue is the image. She's making me feel like the perception of her from people still living. So she might have a better understanding of this herself. The anger is also coming from mostly the way she's perceived. And she's telling me, but they don't, but other people don't know that. Other people can't see that. I know, and I'm sorry. But eventually they will. And if you allow them to, they will. If you allow them to be open, they will. Yes. Sorry, we're going through a couple things. I don't know if I'll say this out loud. All is well with you. All is well with you, my dear child. Sorry, we're still working out some things. So turn around and face them. It's really that simple. Who are you? Show them. And don't be afraid. Yeah. We're getting somewhere. I don't know if I can do that again. Let's go back into that. Sorry. This will just take a few moments. But there's a purpose. There will be more to this. Okay, she's telling me she got it. Because I think it was even kind of more than I could really fully wrap my head around. She's telling me she got it. She's just feeling better. Okay. Alright. Okay, so I'm going to give the floor back to YaYa, because he wants to talk about what just happened. First of all, he's saying you can do this for anyone who has lost their life. You can wish them well, pray for them, send white light like he described. He was wanting all of that to happen, not just to show you how you can transform something or, change the energy behind something, change your approach and the way you feel about something. But he's also telling me and wants you to know that that is the same kind of process that you can do and approach with living people as well, and the issues that we see, because there are a lot of deep issues today, predators, terror, domestic terror, heavy injustice. He's saying you can approach these things in the same way. He's saying that when we are in the problem, that's all we can see, and it becomes consuming. He said, but there's always a solution. There's always a solution. And anytime you're caught up in the heaviness of what's going on, it's impossible to see the solution or even believe in the solution being possible. He said it's all about envisioning. What do you want to see? What do you want to see in the world? What do you want to see in these officers? How would you want to see them? And not replacement officers. How would you want to see these people thriving, not living in despair or torture of others? What does a community that serves one another look like to you? And he's saying, just like in the shift with the spirit, you can shift your attitude internally, and you can also shift the way you have projected and perceived, like an individual officer or group, like a police department. And ultimately, he's saying, do not fear these groups. They are powerless, no matter how much power they might seem to have. They are powerless in comparison to the power of hope. That's how I translate that. And it might seem ridiculous, or like hope is too light to affect anything, but he wants you to know that they are powerless comparative to the power of belief. So what do you choose to believe? He says. What do you choose to believe is possible as an outcome? That will shape the way you feel first, and second, what you see in the world. Alright. I think that about wraps it up. Cool. He's saying, do not be afraid of these groups. He's saying, from our perspective, it looks massive because they're in a collective, right? We seem like we're in the grips of like police or government, something out of our control, and we're just individuals. But he's saying, no. They are individuals too. And he's saying that this is all an individual problem. And to look at it in a way of this group has power over me is especially disempowering. He says, find your personal power. Feed yourself with soul food. And then cook that food for others. And let them be happy. And see what solutions might manifest. He says, the last thing we're going to say, I think, is he says, collectively they look like a group, but they're just individuals, like you and me. Don't forget that. Don't forget that. They're the same as you and me. And if they are lost, show them the way to what is right. Lead them to what is right. Guide them to what is right. Guide them to what feels best. Guide them to what bridges people together. Guide them towards community building. Guide them to understanding peace, and guide them to understanding that anything can be repaired. It really can. And I think we'll end there. Thank you so much for joining me. And I will speak with you next time.